So we just witnessed one of the most shocking results from, the UEFA Champions League. In actual sense, it's one of the most shocking results ever recorded in the history of the UEFA Champions League. And guess what the scoreline was? Arsenal beat Real Madrid by 3-0. I'm saying this and it feels like it's a dream. How did Arsenal beat Real Madrid by 3-0? So the Gunners have a huge advantage after the first leg. They managed to beat 15-time champions as well as defending champions of the UEFA Champions League, Real Madrid, by 3-0. And I'm trying to wrap my head around the scoreline, and it still doesn't make sense to me how Arsenal, led by Mikel Arteta, managed to get a 3-0 win over Real Madrid. Yeah, you could talk about the fact that Real Madrid were shambolic, on the night. Their performance was nothing to write home about. But what a night for Declan Rice. Now, I'll be breaking down the game, the numbers from the game, and also, some interesting statistics from the game we just witnessed. What a game it was at the Emirates. Going into the game, Real Madrid actually, had lost their La Liga game over the weekend to Valencia. And then Arsenal also traveled to the Goodison to take on Everton. They also dropped points in that game. But, both teams actually had their minds and then, eyes on this particular one because it was going to be a crunch one. And trust me, see, if you had asked for my opinion or even for me to have guessed the scoreline prior to the commencement of the game, I wouldn't have even guessed or even predicted Arsenal to have won the game, let alone to beat Real Madrid by 3-0. So you should have seen, Carlo Ancelotti on the touchline after the game and his demeanor and how sad he looked. But then Mikel Arteta, I wouldn't say he actually masterminded this win. But then the player for the match for me, undoubtedly, has to be Declan Rice. What a game this guy had. So he scored twice, from direct free kicks, 2 goals. He gave Arsenal actually a 2-goal lead. And all those goals came from direct free kicks, not even assisted. They came from dead ball situations. And guess what? Declan Rice, in his entire football career, has never scored from a direct free kick. And just when Arsenal faces, a giant like Real Madrid, this guy decides to turn up and score 2 direct free kicks in a space of just 5 minutes or so. It was just a crazy game. You talk about, one of the most, the craziest games or game you've ever witnessed or one could ever witness in the history of the UEFA Champions League. And this Arsenal-Real Madrid game is definitely at the top of that list. Crazy. It was fireworks. It was electric. But then I think, it was a deserving victory for Arsenal. I actually wrote them off. I thought they were not good enough. I was looking at this Real Madrid team and I was thinking, for them to have won the UEFA Champions League 15 times, even when they do not play well, even in seasons where you would say that, Real Madrid are not even the best team in Europe, they still find a way to, qualify. Look at how they beat Manchester City in the playoff round. They just got the better of Manchester City and they just sailed through. And all of a sudden, it looks like Real Madrid are still contenders and they are favorites to win the title and they are just going to win it. And just look at how Arsenal got the job done. It was so smooth. You talk about the likes of Rodrigo, Kylian Mbappe, who, came close to scoring for Real Madrid, but unfortunately just couldn't find the back of the net. And then Vini Jr., for me, the most overrated player in the world, because he went missing. He went AWOL for practically 90 minutes. There was no sign of Vinicius Jr. This is a player whom people are tipping to be, a potential Ballon d'Or winner. He's been on the podium before, but there was nothing to write home about this Real Madrid team. Jude Bellingham was missing. He went totally missing for 90 minutes. David Alaba at the left-hand side, yes, for some time he was able to deal with Bukayo Saka's, lazy runs and all that, but then unfortunately the defense couldn't just hold this Arsenal attack. Mikel Merino, there's a guy who has played in 9 different outfield positions, throughout his professional career. And this time around, it was Mikel Arteta who decided to play him as a false 9. And we're all thinking, how do you play Mikel Merino as a false 9 in such a game? The magnitude of the game tells you that, when you're coming up against the 15-time champions of the UEFA Champions League, a team that's parading Rodrigo, Vini Jr., and then also Kylian Mbappe, you don't tell me you're going to field Mikel Merino in a false 9 role and you expect him to score. But Mikel Merino actually, he did so much in the game. You could see the way he pressed without the ball. And I think he's put so many people in their place, especially me, because I didn't give him a dog's chance to have actually thrived in a defense where you have Antonio Rudiger and then also Raul Asensio. But what a goal this guy scored. On a half volley, hitting it clearly past Thibaut Courtois. And Thibaut Courtois himself, I'm sure he'll be walking down the tunnel, in that bus on the plane, that long ride home, and you'll be thinking how he got beaten by Declan Rice and then also Mikel Merino. So I'm looking at the numbers, after the game, Arsenal managing 54% possession as against Real Madrid's 56. But then it's the expected goals for me. Arsenal really proved that, they created decent chances and they should have also taken the lead or even won the game. At least by a goal margin would have even made the second leg even more competitive and interesting. So with an expected goals of 1.5, Arsenal managed to score 3 goals. Madrid only managed 0.5 expected goals, which means that, the chances they created or even the quality of the chances they created on a day wasn't really up there. But then Arsenal ended up with 12 shots as against Real Madrid's 9. And then also David Raya keeping a clean sheet, but then making 4 crucial saves as compared to Thibaut Courtois, who got beaten 3 times, but then also made 5 huge saves. Arsenal passed the ball a total of 490 times as compared to Real Madrid's 435 times. So it tells you that even statistically, Arsenal were on top of the game. But credit to Declan Rice. I want to give some credit, some props to Mikel Arteta for the way he mapped up the strategy, the kind of system he went with, where without the ball, they would crowd the midfield, the likes of Thomas Partey and Declan Rice, worked so hard in midfield that we couldn't even feel the presence of Jude Bellingham and then also Luka Modric. But you talk about the scoreline, which is the most important statistic in the game of football. Arsenal beating Real Madrid by 3 goals to 0. Trust me, I don't know what you have to say about this one. It's shocking, right? Yeah. If you actually won the game, then you wouldn't be saying that it's so shocking. But then the scoreline actually, for me, doesn't really reflect, what we saw throughout the game. Arsenal, dominated, during larger parts of the game. They dominated, they created some good chances. But then I don't think, winning by 3 goals to 0 was actually a true reflection. But then you don't take anything away from them. We've questioned the mentality of this Arsenal side so many times. We've questioned where they've gone to, where Arsenal, when it matters most, how they failed to turn up. But then Declan Rice, I believe this game could actually be the game of his life. He's never played, or even impacted an Arsenal game at this level, this much. And it tells you that it would be a long 90 minutes in the second leg for Real Madrid. 15-time champions. And at this stage, coming up against a side like Arsenal, that you wouldn't even call a force at this point in time in Europe. And for them to beat them by 3 goals to 0. No, I'm waiting. You must name me, or you have to name me, one result in the UEFA Champions League in the last 10 years. That's actually more shocking than this result. But I think, the comment section is open. You can also have your say in the comment section. Let us know what you think about this game. Do you think Arsenal, after, recording a convincing and resounding 3-0 win over Real Madrid, the 15-time champions of this competition, you would say that Arsenal have a foot in the semi-finals of this particular competition. Now, there was one other game played at the Allianz Arena where Bayern Munich were at home to Inter Milan. I've always questioned, Bayern Munich and their setup under Vincent Kompany. Yes, I know, you talk about a team that has won the UEFA Champions League, 6 times, then you'll be talking about a team that has so much history, prestige and pedigree in the UEFA Champions League. But then to get beaten by this Inter Milan team, I knew Inter Milan, has got the best defense in the UEFA Champions League this season. They prior to the knockout stages of the competition, they've only conceded once throughout 8 games in the group stages. So you talk about defenses being rock solid, defenses being impregnable. Then you're talking about the Inter Milan defense led by, their head coach Simeone Inzaghi. Now, they were facing a Bayern Munich side that could boast of, attacking threat like Serge Gnabry, Leroy Sané, Harry Kane, and then even Thomas Müller. These are guys that on any good day, could, go on a rampage and score a lot of goals. But I've always believed in defense. And even the top coaches, or the connoisseurs of the game will always tell you that defense wins you titles, attack wins you games. So Inter went into this game with a very, very strong defense. And I knew it was going to be very, very difficult for Bayern Munich to break this Inter defense. But, Inter, on the other hand, have got also some of the best strikers in world football now. Talk about Marcos Thuram, who also combined with Argentine international Lautaro Martinez to give Inter Milan the lead. And that was the goal he scored. What a goal Lautaro scored to give Inter the lead. And you could see at that point after Inter scored that, Bayern Munich were panicking a bit. They knew it was going to be difficult for them, to even get back into the game, because we are talking about an Inter defense that is so difficult to break down. Throughout the competition, they've only been breached like about twice or three times. So it tells you how strong and formidable they are, in defense. But then we saw Bayern Munich trying to get back into the game. They eventually did so, with some 5 minutes, to end proceedings. But then they relinquished that lead again. They actually gave, the game away to Inter on a platter with a very quick counter attack. Inter managed to grab the win again through Fratesi. It means that Inter Milan got themselves a 2-1 win in the first leg. And if you're looking at the strength of Inter Milan, I believe it's always at home where teams go to the Giuseppe Meazza and they struggle to even get the better of this Inter side. They are so formidable, and I think Bayern Munich actually shot themselves in the foot. They just half and puffed. They just didn't get, the system right. I'm always going to, question the tactics of Vincent Kompany. This is a coach who is coming from Burnley, a team that got relegated from the Premier League last season. And you'd be expecting that, at least managing a club like Bayern Munich, you should be rubbing shoulders with the big guns in the competition. You do not lose at home in such a manner. This is the same team that Barcelona trashed in the group stages of the competition by 4-1. And people were like, oh yeah, it's just the group stages. But I think, this is just the end result of what we saw throughout the group stages. They've not been consistent. They've not been good enough. Harry Kane is struggling to get goals. Michael Olise is also struggling at this point of the season. Jamal Musiala is out with injury. Upamecano is also not available due to injury. So you can see that there's been some struggles within this Bayern Munich team. And for Inter Milan, kudos to their head coach, Simeone Inzaghi. What a tactician he is. Now, you talk about the top five. No, top five is too much. I'll talk about the top three, tacticians in the game now. And trust me, I'll put Simeone Inzaghi in the game after game. This guy shows us that, he's a world-class coach. He knows, how to even beat the big boys as far as the competition is concerned. And with this 2-1 win for Inter Milan, I don't know, but it would take a miracle for Bayern Munich to bounce back, especially with the second leg headed to the Giuseppe Meazza, where Inter Milan deem it a fortress and they feel so comfortable playing over there. I do not know what you have to say, but the Tuesday games were crazy. Arsenal getting a 3-0 win over Real Madrid, and then Inter Milan also traveling all the way to the Allianz Arena to get a 2-1 win over Bayern Munich. Do you just, I don't know, but I don't know what you have to say about the results, because for me, I am shocked. My man of the match in that game between Arsenal and Real Madrid is definitely going to be Declan Rice. And then for that Bayern Munich and then also the Inter Milan game, I'll definitely go for Lautaro Martinez with that, sumptuous goal he scored. So do you think that, with wins for Arsenal and then also Inter Milan, you think these two teams will definitely qualify to the semi-final stage of the competition? Or you think for Real Madrid, you never rule them out, at least, with the pedigree and the history they have as far as the competition is concerned, then perhaps they could even stage a comeback. But for me, I'll tip Arsenal to go through and then also Inter Milan to go through.